need to scooch in for the cameras.
Okay. I've got my hair washed to be fine.
Yeah. And maybe Jama, would you like to say whether this has met your expectations for
Be a bit honest.
for the day?
Well, we can talk about some of the things that we can see, but this evening, no, I prefer don't
No.
comment nothing
Well,
about
I
it.
mean, yeah.
We will see
that's fine.
things this evening that I think that could clarify some of the questions that we have seen. Well,
Okay. But the initiative for you was to bring people who have Valencia-related collections outside of Valencia and to show them to the interested audience here. So I hope that you feel we've done that. And would anyone like to kick off with a comment or any kind of response or any further questions? There's one here, Master.
So I would like for them to speak a bit about the geometrical aspect of the decoration of all these pieces and of all these tiles. In the last intervention, I've seen El Mocadoret. It is a creation on a square tile, and the only decoration it has is that it is painted half in color and the other half is not painted. And it has been very widely used here in Valencia. We have a lot of samples of different compositions of composing mosaics which show the beauty of geometry. I would like to ask them, therefore, if the fact of not having any geometrical decoration in the objects that we have seen this morning in Lustreware, that is due to the fact that even though it is ceramics with Arabic, very powerful Arabic influence, or because it doesn't, in the collections shown, there are no pieces showing this aspect. And to Professor Dr. An, I wanted to ask her if the studies, researches made by your students, if they study the geometry in art as part of their curriculum.
Designs and tiles, and whether we also see them on objects. Is this the question?
Well, it's very.
why we don't find geometric?
If you're going to do tiles, then I'll just turn this down. Yeah, you're going to impress people, so you're going to have decoration rather than a plain repeating pattern. But so then it's very little tile work which has got general repeating patterns now.
I mean, to me,
But they do exist.
Tiles lend themselves to having geometric designs and repeating patterns. I think maybe the issue in the UK, in England, in these finds, is that because they're such luxurious objects, it's expensive for the patrons of these buildings to import so many, and they've just been found in such small quantities. So I imagine that originally the designs were much more geometric, but we just don't have that impression from what survives.
We don't know.
So the question's for you.
So on geometry, the study of it for the students, they are studying history of art and architecture. So this would be part of the study more widely of Islamic art in North Africa and Spain that I'm teaching them. So thinking about the role that geometry played in design and understanding that. But particularly for these ceramics that they're looking at in the museum in Dublin, it doesn't play a large role in what we're looking at. So geometry comes in when we are thinking about ceilings, for example, las techumbres and thinking about the wooden ceilings and the study of geometry in design more widely, but not so much in the particular examples we have in Dublin. It's not so prevalent.
Sorry.
Yeah. Do you want to use this?
Okay.
In England back then, there was a tradition of geometric mosaic with small pieces, with geometric forms, and maybe this is what was exotic back then, what was coming from Spain. But the geometric compositions were widely used in the 14th century. I'm sure Dr. Beats can say some examples, but it's a very widely used decoration in Europe and in Great Britain, and I think it's a continuation of the tradition of the first productions that we saw in the 9th and 10th century. Opus sectile, made in ceramics, but which afterwards were specialized, and they even have tin lusterware.
Yeah, I think, well, in medieval tiles, a lot of the tile designs were, were repeating patterns. So you did get geometric designs. So you got standalone tiles, and then you've got repeating patterns. A lot of them were repeating patterns, but it depends how you define geometric, really. So it is a repeating, but whether you can call it geometric pattern, I don't know. So I think it's something a bit more simple in design that is obviously repeating a geometric pattern. But they are, most tiles are meant to be 2/4 patterns, or they just repeat across the floor. So we did have lots of repeating patterns, but it just depends how you define geometric.
Any other questions? Us? Oh, Tim? Okay.
I just wanted slightly to contest this idea that these are very, very luxury items. Ships that carry oil and beautiful deliciousnesses from the Mediterranean up to England need ballast. If you're taking back wool, for instance, your ship needs something at the bottom, or else it will bob around terribly. So I'm not entirely persuaded that they're immensely luxury objects, and I also suspect that, as used in England, and I'd be glad of Ian's comments on this, they were very often plain brick pavements interspersed with little groups of beautiful coloured tiles rather than solid floors.
Yes, I heard about that. There is no evidence, because you will get warm bricks and things, there's no evidence of plain tiles interspersed with decorative tiles. I have seen that on the continent. Regarding imports and things, I think you've got a good point that it was ballast. Is much later reference, but we exported wool to the Low Countries, and they complained that when Britain complained, the only thing we got back from the Netherlands was pots, pans and pan tiles, basically pots and roofing tiles and things. So obviously, the idea of things coming back as ballast is a good one. Yes.
Hassan, you had a question or a comment.
I was wondering, maybe now with what Tim has said, but not so much, but if they were luxury goods, I understand they may want to copy these objects to make them more accessible. Do you know of any British artisans, art and craftsmen who would come to Valencia to learn the techniques back then?
El único ejemplo que puedo pensar es el que ha mencionado Jaume, que es Charles Pickman, que viene a Sevilla en 1830 y algo, creo que es 34 si no recuerdo mal, y establece la fábrica de cerámica de la Cartuja. Y sí que es verdad que el panel de Cadogan Square se parece bastante a la entrada al panel de entrada de la Cartuja, con esa juxtaposición de motivos que parece como si fuese un cortapega de motivos así. Bueno, a lo mejor Jaume tiene algo que decir, pero en cuestión de británicos viniendo a España, que pueda acordarme, que pueda reconocer, para mí sería ese uno de los principales ejemplos y un ejemplo muy exitoso como productor.
I can't think of examples at the moment, probably I'll think of something later, of British artists coming to Spain to learn the techniques, but I can think of examples of British artists being inspired by the collections that had been formed by these museums. So a very important one, Anna mentioned him, is William de Morgan, and he made a whole series of dishes with sailing ships on them that seem to have been directly inspired by the Nasrid dish, or bowl, whatever you want to call that shape, that was bought by the V&A in the 1860s. So that collection was public. Obviously the British Museum collection existed as well, so artists could use these, and as we talked about earlier, the V&A was very deliberately making acquisitions to inspire artists, so they were using them as source materials. So there's a whole series of in lustre and not in lustre sailing ships on De Morgan's dishes that seem to be very specifically referencing that object. But then, yeah, other examples. Obviously, the Spanish art was very popular in Britain in the 19th century and early 20th century. Does anyone else want to comment on?
In Ireland as well, we had Frederick Vaudrey, who was inspired by the collection of ceramics directly, the Spanish collection in Dublin, and he made a very successful pottery in Dublin that combined Celtic and Spanish techniques and motifs in a very distinctive way. So his pottery, he left all his pottery from a large collection to the museum, so we have a lot of it there, and it's very distinctive, but it's really, he's trying to imitate lustre, not using lustre technique, but trying to imitate it, and the shapes and patterns are very inspired by them as well.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Hello and good afternoon. I would like to ask those of you representing museums if you found a lot of current ceramics that is a reproduction of older tiles. Have you found numerous contemporary reproductions imitating old and that have been purchased and shown by museums as original? You know, because, some pieces were bought thinking they were genuine or original, and then with time they've seen...
I think one of the pieces you showed might be a fake.
Oh, you the one that was...
There's a bracero with
Yes.
strange lines on the outside.
18.
I can't remember. We'll look at the pictures later.
Actually, I would like to hear about what... Bueno, lo voy a hacer en español, si no pasa nada. Me gustaría saber lo que Jaume...
I want to know what Jaume had to say about the bracera, insofar as it was purchased as being from the 15th century and only recently, and I do know exactly when, because the Borough Museum documents do not record this. Notwithstanding this, it's probably in the 20th century, because the annotation was written with a felted pen. It probably was 18th, 19th century. But perhaps there are questions about whether this is so. I don't know whether something could be added. Okay, well, in order to... when was that purchased? A while ago. In 48. Okay. You could know whether it's old or not via the X-ray diffractometry. It's a non-destructive study. But what I mentioned is it's not 18th century, 19th, maybe 20th, perhaps so. We do not know. But I'd like to see it. myself because it could also be original. I mean, who knows? That was the comment I made to you earlier. The problem comes with unlawful traffic of museums that didn't have specialists and saw an object and bought it and for large sums of money. But if it was a gift or some objects bequeathed, it's not usually the case. In terms of fakes and copies and dates, it's not 18th century. They did not perform reproductions. It could have happened over the two last decades of the 19th century, the last third of the 19th century. There could be a reproduction or a replica, fake, however you want to call it. But in the first 2/3 of the century, I have not come across any example. The best known sediments, you got sign. I've identified pieces by the ceramist 5 or 6, and they are not reproductions. They are remakes centered on the time of the moment with the neoclassical era. So there were no other, there were no reproductions or imitations of older objects before that. Well, if I may, and this is a little joke here, but anyway, Jesus Furiol was in contact with antique shops and was known to do fakes to try to sell them at the price of an original. But he used to do very good copies. And in fact, we'll see some studies of objects presented at the Budapest exhibit, and they were studied by Kovacs in the room, and they're magnificent, top quality objects, but they're recent. There was no intention to falsify. But anyway, even Moffitt said that one of the persons involved with La Ceramo, sculptor Francisco Payas, had made the fake Dama de Elche. He said it was a fake done by this gentleman, which is ridiculous. But but there was the story because Francisco Payas was an ivorist, and at the Victorian Albert have some objects by him because the quality is extraordinary. Would work with old ivory and would do this just because he wanted to personally prove himself that he could achieve such quality. But dealers, he usually signed, but they used some dealers. Some dealers used this to try to sell them when they knew that they were very recent.
Finish now? I think we're going to draw everything to a close. So I just want to thank everybody, thank all our speakers, thank Jalma, Asun and the team here. Thank you all for coming and staying with us through to the bitter end, and for all your questions and comments. And thank you, it's been a very fascinating day. So look forward to the rest of the programme. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria.